Beyond the deadly radiation, Chernobyl hides a terrifying secret that few dare to uncover. Pasha's parents sold their family home and made a fortune. Before leaving on a trip, they reminded him repeatedly, never let strangers into the house. But the very next morning, the safe containing 8 million rubles was gone. Pasha and his friends were in shock. Suspicious glances quickly turned to Gosha, the bespectacled tech guy. Turns out they had thrown a party the night before. Halfway through, the internet cut out. So someone called in Gosha, who wasn't exactly a close friend but was known for his tech skills. After poking around for a while, he concluded the system wasn't the issue. They needed a professional. The next day, while everyone was recovering from their hangovers, a so-called repair technician knocked on their door. He fixed the network and left in a hurry. That's when Pasha discovered the money in the safe had vanished. Everyone immediately suspected the technician, but Gosha was outraged. He never called for any repairs. They all looked at each other in confusion. Who had let that guy in? Pasha rushed home to inspect the replaced hardware. On the back, he found a repair shop's address. He didn't care if it was fake. He had to check it out. He grabbed his treasured pistol, one he and his best friend Lyosha had found at a war memorial site. The group soon arrived at the listed address. From inside, they heard faint noises. Pasha and Lyosha kicked down the door and found a tall woman standing inside. Her name was Anya. She said the technician had tricked her into coming under the pretense of a job interview. Lyosha's girlfriend then noticed a photo pinned on the wall. It showed Pasha, Lyosha, and the technician standing together. But none of them had ever met him before, let alone taken a photo with him. Something about this whole situation was seriously off. Feeling overwhelmed, Pasha had no choice but to report it to the police. But as soon as he stepped into the station, he regretted it. The officer clearly didn't want to deal with the case. He casually asked a few questions, then dismissed it since Anya wasn't harmed. They saw no need to investigate. He asked Pasha how much money was stolen. Pasha, thinking quickly, said 10,000 rubles. In an instant, they were kicked out of the station. His friends asked why he lied. Pasha knew the system. If he said it was 8 million, even if they caught the thief, the money would never come back to him. Now, their only option was to catch the guy themselves. Gosha, the computer whiz, managed to find the technician's social media account. He had just posted a video, flaunting a brand new luxury watch and a motorcycle. He claimed he was chasing his dream of exploring the haunted ruins of Chernobyl. Pasha's heart sank. Everything he spent years saving was now funding this lunatic's road trip. Determined to track him down, Pasha planned a journey to Chernobyl. Anya didn't want to come. After all, she barely knew them. But Gosha's grandmother had an old car which they borrowed for the trip. Just as they were about to leave, Pasha got a call. Anya had changed her mind. Back home, she had received a letter. Shockingly, it was a plea for help, seemingly from her sister, who had been dead for years. Both her birthplace and burial site were in Pripyat, near the Chernobyl power plant. Meanwhile, the technician was now posting daily vlogs claiming he was helping fans explore the dark history of Chernobyl. Pasha was beyond furious. He swore he'd make him pay. But just as they left the city, they were stopped at a police checkpoint. Lyosha quietly slipped a mysterious bag under his seat, but the officers still found it. They were threatened with detention for possession of illegal items. Pasha knew the game. There wasn't enough evidence to charge them. The officers just wanted a bribe. Anya offered 15,000 rubles, but the cops demanded at least 30,000. Unable to pay, they detained Gosha, warning the others to bring the money before nightfall. Anya said she had a card and left to withdraw more. Meanwhile, the technician uploaded another video this time. He said he crashed a village wedding and bought a car as a gift for the newlyweds. Pasha nearly snapped. He couldn't take it anymore. Things only got worse. The nearby ATM was broken. Out of options, Pasha decided to sell their phones to scrape together the ransom. They headed to a truck stop, hoping some drivers might buy the phones. But the truckers saw Pasha's desperation and offered dirt-cheap prices. Even selling all the phones wasn't enough. Lyosha had another idea: gamble the phone money with the truckers in a card game. He was confident he'd win, but his girlfriend was uneasy. As expected, Lyosha tried to cheat and got caught red-handed. With the situation spiraling, Pasha pulled his pistol. The poker game turned into a robbery. They grabbed the money and rushed back to the station to free Gosha. But the truckers weren't done. They followed them. Pasha's old car couldn't handle a chase. He had to rely on quick turns and detours to shake them off. But the truck kept coming. By pure luck, they rounded a corner and saw another car of the same model. Pasha sped up and left it behind. Sure enough, the truck chased the wrong car, ramming it off the road. They were safe, but Anya felt guilty. What if the driver was badly hurt? They went back to check and found him seriously injured. They carried him to a nearby cafe, hoping to call for help. But the place was eerily empty. Eventually, a nervous-looking waiter appeared. Something felt off, but they brought the man inside. Anya found an ID in his pocket. He was a federal agent. Suddenly, he woke up shouting, "Where's the fugitive?" and reached for his gun. Pasha quickly disarmed him and handed the weapon to the waiter. Turns out, there had been a dangerous criminal in the car with the agent, who had escaped after the crash. Nastya recalled seeing a black van loitering on the roadside earlier. Gosha suggested checking the dashcam footage from the crashed car. They returned to the scene and found the dashcam. There had been 3 people in the car. After the crash, the criminal had dragged one of the agents away. They realized the waiter was the fugitive. Back at the cafe, Anya went downstairs looking for the restroom and found 3 bodies in the storeroom. She screamed, alerting Lyosha. As he tried to reach her, a large man entered, the real cafe owner. The fugitive could no longer hide. He shot the owner and forced Nastya outside. By the time Pasha and the others returned, the fugitive had already fled with her. He turned out to be mentally unstable. His daughter had died in the Chernobyl disaster. When he saw Nastya, he became obsessed, convinced she was his daughter reborn. Pasha's group tried to give chase, but their car broke down, smoke pouring from the hood. Just then, a black van sped past them, chasing after the fugitive's vehicle. It forced him to stop. Nastya watched in shock as a tall, muscular man stepped out, killed the fugitive, and drove off into the darkness. The next morning, Nastya rejoined the group, still shaken. While they discussed what to do next, a kind stranger stopped by. He offered to take them to a nearby repair shop in a small village. While the car was being repaired, they spotted the technician's new motorcycle. This was the same village from his wedding video, but by the time they turned around, he was gone, riding off again. They gave chase but were blocked by the black van from earlier. No one was inside. With no other choice, they returned to the village. The kind stranger claimed to be a friend of the bride and asked them to deliver a gift. At the wedding, they handed the package to the bride. The moment she opened it, she collapsed. The groom was furious. He claimed the person in the photo had died in the Chernobyl disaster over a year ago. As they drew closer to the radioactive zone, the journey only grew stranger. Like a dark force was leading them forward. When one man drove straight down a road for hours, he ended up right back where he started. He didn't believe it, so he left a mark on a road sign. But hours later, he was back at the same sign again. His heart sank into despair. He had encountered far too many strange and unexplainable things along the way. Just yesterday, at a village wedding, all he did was deliver a gift. Yet it scared the bride so badly she fainted on the spot. Afterward, they learned the person who asked him to deliver the gift was the bride's ex-boyfriend, someone who had been dead for over a year. And the photo in the gift? It was the exact one buried with him. Pasha and his friends exchanged stunned glances. Were they really experiencing a haunting in broad daylight? Gosha suddenly thought of something and led everyone to a mechanic's shop the man had mentioned. When they pushed open the door, the shop owner was slumped in a corner, mumbling, "I'm sorry," over and over. Then he began recounting an event from the past year. The current groom had paid him 2,000 rubles to sabotage the ex-boyfriend's brakes. The next day, the man died in a car crash. The mechanic had planned to take that secret to the grave, but today, the dead man had returned, demanding the truth be revealed. Then without warning, the mechanic raised a long gun and pulled the trigger. The local sheriff immediately arrested the groom. He urged Pasha and the others to forget what they saw. Still in shock, they all agreed to drive out of the village that very night. On the road, Gosha suggested they give up the trip to Chernobyl. They had already seen enough terrifying, unbelievable things. But Lyosha, ever loyal to Pasha and the lost 8 million rubles, scoffed. "What's a few setbacks?" he said. Tired of Gosha's constant complaints, Lyosha locked him in the car's trunk. They didn't let him out until they stopped at a gas station. By sheer coincidence, while shopping inside, Lyosha ran into a man. After chatting for a bit, he learned the man was paid to smuggle some equipment across the border. At first, Lyosha wasn't interested, until he heard how much the man was getting paid. Suddenly eager, he offered to help with the border crossing. But during inspection, Lyosha's little trick got exposed. The border officer sternly informed them they were facing serious consequences for illegal transport. That's when Lyosha's girlfriend Nastya stood up, saying she wanted to speak to the officer in charge. Strange noises came from the office soon after. Half an hour later, Nastya walked out with everyone's passports. They were free to go. Only the man with the smuggled gear remained behind for questioning. Back on the road, the atmosphere in the car was thick with tension. Anya broke the silence, trying to comfort Nastya. But Nastya acted like nothing had happened. As it turned out, things weren't quite as they seemed. The officer in charge was secretly gay and often mocked by coworkers. He asked Nastya to help stage a scene so people would think he was a normal guy. In return, he let everyone go. If the man he detained wasn't mentally fit, he wouldn't face consequences anyway. Relieved, the group finally relaxed. But that night, they saw a new video from the thief technician, and in it, he met the very same man who'd just been released. That's when they realized he was also heading to Chernobyl. By the next morning, the technician had already reached the zone. He claimed there was nothing particularly spooky, though a stray dog had been following him non-stop, which felt eerie. Meanwhile, Pasha's group had just reached the outskirts of the disaster zone. On both sides of the road, there were small signs marking places where radiation-contaminated homes had been buried. Even after more than 30 years, the Chernobyl nuclear plant remained a strictly restricted area. They could only observe from afar. Eventually, they drove into Pripyat, the nearest town. Once home to over 50,000 residents, mostly workers and their families from the power plant, it had become a ghost town overnight after the nuclear leak. They searched for hours along the deserted roads, but there was no sign of the technician. Gosha stopped the car to grab some food from the trunk, and that's when he discovered an unfamiliar backpack. Lyosha quickly realized it belonged to the man they met earlier. Feeling the other's judgmental stares, he quickly tried to change the subject. Inside the backpack was what looked like a radiation detector, but since they were just passing through, they figured they wouldn't need it. That's when a new video dropped. This time, the technician looked exhausted, like he had just seen something horrifying. He'd been wandering the abandoned city all day. His gas tank was empty, and he still hadn't found his way out. Worse yet, the same stray dog had been following him the whole time. Pasha and the others weren't too worried until they noticed a sign in the background. Gosha cross-referenced it on a map. It was an old, abandoned school. They rushed to the spot from the video. Sure enough, the stolen motorcycle was still parked there. Inside the seat compartment, they found the stolen cash. Pasha counted it. Only 5 million left. His heart ached. He vowed to find the bastard and get some payback. They searched every classroom floor by floor. But aside from piles of shredded paper, the building was empty. Anya suggested checking the rooftop of the tallest building across the street. Maybe the technician was still wandering nearby. Everyone agreed, except the always nervous Gosha. Pasha, meanwhile, had noticed something suspicious about Anya. She seemed to have a personal reason for coming here. He quietly followed her and found her crouched in a room, looking through a photo album. This was her childhood home. The picture she received earlier was torn straight from one of these old albums. But who would go to such lengths just to lure Anya here? When they reached the rooftop, Gosha was already waving from the other side. The technician had been spotted in the ruins across the street. They ran over, but once again, he slipped away. All they found was his laptop, and a video that hadn't been uploaded yet. In it, the technician was clearly losing his mind. He mumbled that this place never lets anyone out alive. Then that horrifying stray dog appeared again. Feeling uneasy, the group decided it was best to leave. But soon, they began experiencing the same terrifying loop. No matter how far they drove, they remained stuck in town. Pasha frowned at a familiar road sign, and then saw the dog trailing them again. Without hesitation, he pulled out his gun and fired. The gunshot jolted everyone awake. Pasha explained what was happening. They decided their best bet was to sleep and try again in the morning. Only Gosha nervously asked over and over, "How do we get out of here?" At dawn, Gosha's screams woke them up. Their beat-up car was gone. Even worse, Anya had disappeared too. She must have driven off during the night. After waiting 30 minutes, they had no choice but to start walking. They wondered why she left. Where could she have gone? Not long after, they saw a red pickup truck coming toward them. The driver casually asked, "You guys heading to the zone too?" Pasha hesitated, then nodded. These men clearly had experience. It wasn't a bad idea to tag along and catch a ride out later. Lyosha noticed guns in the back seat and asked why they were armed. The burly man replied, "They were going to hunt." Gosha looked puzzled. "There's no wildlife around here. What are you planning to hunt?" The men laughed. "You guys are the prey," one of them said, raising his weapon. The leader generously offered a 1-minute head start. A shot rang out. Pasha and his friends ran for their lives into the forest. Out here, in a lawless zone, they could run into anyone or anything. Lyosha cursed his short legs as they sprinted through the ruins. They eventually reached an abandoned building. Pasha told Gosha and Nastya to hide while he and Lyosha would draw the attackers away. It was better than letting everyone die together. They jumped through a window and ran as fast as they could. Just as they were about to enter another building, a dog blocked the path. A bullet grazed Lyosha's side. Still, he pushed through the pain and made it inside. Meanwhile, Nastya saw the gunman enter the building. She figured she could sneak to their truck and grab some weapons. Gosha was terrified. He begged her not to go. Inside, Pasha managed to ambush one of the gunmen, but was interrupted by a blaring alarm. Nastya had smashed the truck's window. The startled gunman fired wildly, accidentally hitting one of his teammates. Pasha, Lyosha, and Nastya regrouped and returned fire. As the firefight raged on, a surprise attacker took out the last 2 gunmen. They looked up and saw the same black van. It had once blocked their path, but also saved Nastya. They couldn't figure out whose side it was really on. After patching Lyosha's wound, they were ready to leave. But along the road, they found the car Anya had driven. It was empty. Pasha realized this was the same building they searched earlier. Maybe she had returned to her childhood home. They combed through every room but found no one. Just as they were about to leave, Anya popped out from the rooftop, screaming for help. Pasha and Lyosha rushed back inside, leaving Gosha and Nastya at the car. Then Anya appeared on the rooftop again, still crying for help. Despite the confusion, they all went in. They had no idea what horrors were waiting for them next. When they finally saw Anya again, she looked paranoid and on edge. She refused to leave until she saw Pasha. Nastya yelled, "Are you out of your mind?" Anya explained, "Chernobyl can create illusions, doubles of people within enclosed spaces. These phantoms kill anyone who enters the zone." Suddenly the building shook. Nastya panicked. "We have to leave now. This place is collapsing." But Anya shouted for them to wait. Meanwhile, in the stairwell, Pasha and Lyosha ran into a panicked Gosha. He said that Nastya had made a new discovery in the basement. When the three of them rushed down, they saw several support pillars were halfway broken, which meant the entire building could collapse at any moment. Pasha instantly panicked. He had to find Anya before it was too late. But as she walked farther away, Nastya suddenly sat down, looking deeply upset. After Lyosha questioned her repeatedly, she finally spoke up. She claimed Pasha had always harbored inappropriate thoughts about her and had even touched her more than once. Lyosha flew into a rage, and right at that moment, Pasha appeared. Acting on impulse, Lyosha charged and attacked him. When he realized he couldn't overpower Pasha, he picked up a long gun from the floor. The atmosphere turned deadly in an instant. Pasha swore he'd never done anything to Nastya, but Nastya doubled down, saying she'd even caught Pasha in the act. Then she walked up and suddenly said, "Kill her." That's when Lyosha realized something was off. Nastya and Gosha were acting way too strange. He and Pasha bolted out of the basement, trying to figure out what was going on when they suddenly heard shouting from the rooftop. They ran upstairs and rejoined the others. Once they learned about the existence of doppelgangers in the building, Pasha finally understood the Nastya and Gosha they met in the basement weren't real. Thank goodness they hadn't fallen for the trick and killed each other. Now that the truth was out, Pasha just wanted to get Anya and leave. But she kept stalling and wouldn't come downstairs. Lyosha grew suspicious and in the next second raised his gun and fired. The bullets had no effect. That Anya was also a copy. Pasha shouted, "Run!" They had just gotten into the car when the entire building collapsed behind them. If they'd been delayed even a few more seconds, no one would have made it out alive. Everyone was stunned. How did Lyosha know she wasn't the real Anya? He explained that he had seen a power line support structure on the rooftop, and Anya was holding one identical to it in her hand. That's how he realized she was a copy. Then, Pasha noticed a beam of light coming from an old abandoned Ferris wheel in the distance. Without hesitation, he drove toward it. Sure enough, Anya's voice echoed through the air. Pasha grabbed a long rope from the car and began climbing up the metal structure. Anya was trapped at the very top, and many parts of the wheel had no support to hold on to. But thanks to Pasha's strength and endurance, he finally reached her. He tied the rope around them both and secured the other end to the frame. It was much safer than the climb up. The two of them descended safely. Everyone had questions. Why did Anya sneak off in the middle of the night? And how did she end up stuck at the top of the Ferris wheel? With a frown, Anya slowly began recounting her strange experience. For years, she'd had recurring dreams of her late sister and parents happily sharing a meal. But one day, her sister whispered, "Help me." Last night, the dream continued. Anya's sister snuck into the basement, opened a metal box, and started writing in a journal. Curious, Anya drove back to her old home that very night, using her radiation detector as a flashlight. Guided by her dream, she found the journal in the exact same spot in the basement. Most of the entries were normal, but the last few pages, which seemed important, were completely decayed. Just as she was about to leave, the flashlight on the detector suddenly went out. She pressed the button again, and in the next moment, everything around her changed. The layout was the same, but gone was the decay and dust. Even the journal's final pages were restored. That's when she read her sister's plan to go cliff diving by the river the next day, the place where she might have died. Anya opened the basement door and found herself in an entirely different world. Posters on the wall told her the truth. She had somehow traveled back to 1986. Chernobyl had not yet exploded. Pripyat was vibrant and full of life, but there was no time to take it all in. She had one goal: to stop her sister from dying. She rushed to the cliff. In the distance, she saw someone being loaded into an ambulance. Was she too late? With trembling hands, she lifted the sheet but sighed in relief. It wasn't her sister. Where had she gone? Flipping through the journal again, Anya discovered her sister often went to a construction site to feed stray cats. She ran there and soon heard her sister's voice. A stray dog had her cornered on a staircase. Anya grabbed a nearby shovel. She managed to distract the dog, but now it was after her. She ran with everything she had. At the edge of the platform, she spotted a hanging rope and without thinking, jumped. After saving her younger sister, Anya took her to the amusement park to play. But as they sat on the Ferris wheel, Anya suddenly vanished, snapped back to the present. Same place, different time. That's how she ended up trapped on the wheel. Gosha suddenly had a thought. He asked Anya to check a family photo on her phone. Sure enough, there was now an extra girl in the picture, her sister, alive and well. She really had changed the past. On the way back to town, Lyosha joked, "Maybe we should all time travel." Pasha slammed on the brakes, dead serious. "Until we're out of this place, no one tries anything." Suddenly, a chilling howl echoed from the woods. Could it be the technician? Pasha couldn't ignore it. He decided to check it out, but when they arrived, everyone froze. Half of the man's body was fused into a tree and he was still alive. Pasha cautiously approached and saw the man holding a small device. With his last strength, he begged for an injection of nutrients. The serum was in a warehouse just 200 meters ahead. Lyosha didn't want to get involved, but curiosity got the best of them. Inside, it looked like a large research lab. The fridge was full of food. Gosha was more interested in the touchscreen computer. Pasha and Anya found the serum. Pasha told the others to lock the door behind them, then carried the half-man out. Meanwhile, Gosha was going through the files. It turned out this man was one of the researchers. He had tried to time travel, but reappeared halfway inside a tree. His co-workers kept him alive with daily injections. To fix it, someone had to go back in time and cut down the tree. But the second time machine was still in Moscow. The delivery guy, the technician, was originally supposed to bring it here. But fate had other plans. In the final frames of the video, the same delivery man appeared. So he really was part of the research base. Back outside, Pasha and Anya reached the half-man again, but just as they were about to inject the serum, he went silent. They noticed a strange vial nearby, one that hadn't been there before. Someone else had come. They locked eyes, then sprinted toward the road. Seeing their broken-down car still there, they finally exhaled, but it was leaking oil. Someone had sabotaged the engine. They were trapped. Pasha took a deep breath and laid out a plan. It was a 30-kilometer hike to the city. They could make it by nightfall. For now, rest was the priority. But Gosha couldn't sleep. He was obsessed with the lab's data. He turned the computer back on. The recordings showed the town from years ago as if it existed simultaneously in the past and present. Due to radiation, the facility emitted light waves from 26 years ago, syncing two timelines together. That's how the time travel device was invented. Suddenly, loud banging echoed from the door. Gosha checked the security camera. It was the technician. Pasha dragged him inside without hesitation. The man was clearly traumatized. He had survived in the woods for 3 days until his mind gave out. Someone gave him water and saved him, but when he reached a lit-up guard post, he found that same savior lying dead and bloody. Then a snarling dog appeared, standing beside an unharmed version of his savior. The memory ended there. He didn't want to talk anymore. After stuffing his face with food, he finally confessed his true purpose. The researcher he met had sent him to the base for medicine. Everyone went quiet. That researcher must have been the one keeping the half-man alive. They had questions and decided to go with the technician to the outpost, but his behavior was odd. He said voices were urging him to hurt people, so he tied his hands with rope. They followed him into the woods, but when they arrived, the researcher was already dead. The wounds didn't look like they came from a bear trap. The technician started rambling again, saying Chernobyl killed him. After more pressure, he revealed the truth. That night, the researcher had already been dead. What he saw afterward was just a phantom, created by Chernobyl. The radiation had gained sentience and was using hallucinations to manipulate people. That phantom wanted him to lure Pasha's group into the outpost. The phantoms had two weaknesses. They could only exist in enclosed spaces and couldn't inflict real harm. If he completed the task, Chernobyl promised to let the dog escort him out of the zone. The group suddenly smelled kerosene. They turned to leave, but more copies had appeared. The phantoms said Chernobyl could control those with weak minds. Then the technician lit his lighter. Dry wood was stacked at the entrance. They were trapped. Pasha quickly hit the time machine switch, and the next moment they jumped to the year 1986. An old man stared in shock, but Pasha said nothing. He locked the man inside the outpost. The technician, still under Chernobyl's influence, was lost in confusion. Gosha finally snapped. He stormed over and beat him up. If not for this guy, they wouldn't be in this mess. Once things calmed down, Pasha led the group through the forest. Before long, they emerged onto a road surrounded by people, going about their day. That's when they realized they were in the past, back before the explosion. And the streets of Chernobyl were still alive with light, laughter, and life. Everyone was finally able to relax, as if this were just an unforgettable journey through time. According to Anya's past experience, they'd automatically return to the present in a few hours. The only minor setback? None of them had money from this time period. Pasha really wanted an authentic cup of kvass, so he shamelessly asked a kind stranger to buy one for him. Suddenly, Anya's eyes lit up. She saw her father in the crowd. She didn't dare reveal her identity, but she figured a casual chat wouldn't hurt. Maybe she could even ask how her sister was doing. But her father's response made Anya's face go pale. He said her sister had been trapped in the Ferris wheel the day before. He had to go to the police station to explain things, and because of that, he switched shifts with a colleague. Tonight, he'd be working at the Chernobyl power plant. Anya nearly broke down. Today was April 25th. The meltdown would happen early on April 26th. She clearly remembered that her father had survived because he worked the day shift. But now, because she'd saved her sister, the butterfly effect had changed everything. He would now be on duty during the explosion. Lyosha had a blunt solution. Break his leg so he can't go to work. But Gosha was more logical. Interfering with history could cause even worse consequences. Nastya then raised a bold theory. What if Chernobyl had killed the researchers because they invented the time machine? And what if it wanted to kill them because they might actually stop the meltdown? If that happened, the sentient force of Chernobyl would never exist. Pasha found it convincing. They only had a few hours left here. Why not try saving the nuclear plant? He decided to split the group. He and Lyosha would find a car and get to the plant as fast as possible. The others would try to convince Anya's father, who knew more than anyone about the reactor, to help them prevent the disaster. It wasn't hard to convince him. Anya revealed a secret only the two of them knew. That immediately got her father's attention. Then Gosha pulled out his laptop, an object that looked like alien tech in the 1980s. Eventually, Anya's father begrudgingly accepted that they were from the future, but nothing could have prepared him for what he saw next. Footage of the meltdown, the destruction, the ghost town. Emotionless, stunned, he fell silent. Then, after collecting his thoughts, he agreed to help. He came up with a plan: create a small, controlled malfunction, just enough to force higher-ups to shut down the reactor. But to be safe, he decided to send his wife and daughter to another city for a few days. All they needed now was for Pasha and Lyosha to return with a vehicle. Meanwhile, stealing a car was no problem for Lyosha. Back then, car locks were all basically the same. Just as he picked a lock, a cop walked by. They barely talked their way out of it, but then the officer spotted the pistol on Pasha's waist. That was it. They were in serious trouble now. Agents from National Security quickly arrived. They confiscated all their strange items. They figured the phones were high-end calculators, and the only thing they recognized, their passports. But even those had odd stamps and birth dates. The agent, thoroughly confused, decided to interrogate Pasha himself. Pasha, knowing they'd be gone soon, refused to say a word. The agent was furious, but determined. He ordered a group photo of the suspects, then pulled aside the technician for a separate interrogation. The man, after days of rest, was no longer delirious. He calmly answered every question. Still, time travel and nuclear meltdowns sounded insane. The agent didn't know what to believe, and so he used his final trump card. He locked away all their belongings, then requested the strongest truth serum available. Once injected, anyone would unconsciously reveal everything they knew. Poor Lyosha ended up spilling everything. Even then, the agent could barely wrap his head around it. But as someone from security services, his perspective was different. He didn't believe in accidents, only sabotage. He ordered all entrances to the nuclear plant reinforced. Meanwhile, Anya's group didn't reunite with Pasha, but they did hear about a car theft arrest. The suspects matched Pasha and Lyosha's description. They weren't too worried, though. They'd be jumping back to the future soon. For now, the focus was getting a car. Anya's father asked his uncle from a nearby farm to give them a ride to the plant. Gosha and the others would hop off at the police station to reunite with the others. But during a random vehicle inspection, police found their phones and tablets, items that the younger agent had already flagged. They were arrested on the spot. Inside the jail, Pasha heard Anya's voice echoing in the corridor. Their mission had completely failed, but the next second, Pasha vanished into thin air. At that exact moment, the agent finished reporting to his superiors and got word that all the suspects had mysteriously disappeared, except for Anya's father, who was left sitting alone in the isolation room. Even the contents of the safe, their gear, had vanished. Their journey through time had seemingly changed nothing, but the past and future had already been altered forever. Most of them had never traveled through time before. It was surreal. Only the unlucky technician was left behind, locked in a rusted room after the latch broke. Pasha fired several rounds at the lock and finally freed the annoying guy. After some thought, they decided to destroy the time machine. Only then could they rid themselves of Chernobyl's wrath. Just then, they heard movement outside. Pasha assumed it was the technician causing trouble again and forced him to lead the way. But the moment the man peeked out, a bullet struck him dead. A man with a submachine gun opened fire on them. They scrambled for cover. Gosha had been shot. Pasha peeked out. The attacker's vehicle was a black van, the same one that had helped them before. Why was it trying to kill them now? Then the man yelled, "Give me the time machine! You ruined my life!" That's when they realized it was the younger agent from the past. He had gathered all that intel, yet failed to stop the meltdown and had lost everything. Now he wanted to travel back and change his fate. Rhett came up with a plan. He stepped out holding the time machine and in a flash pulled Pasha's gun and fired. He was shot in the leg but bought them time. Nastya tried to take the enemy's gun, but he was wearing a vest and shot her in the head. Lyosha screamed and emptied his clip. Pasha helped the wounded Anya escape, but soon Lyosha's ammo ran out. Pasha and Anya made it to the rooftop. The agent followed like a shadow. Pasha leapt from the edge, landing on a tree and breaking his fall. Anya tried to jump, but a bullet hit her chest mid-air. She didn't make it. Pasha was the only survivor. The agent kept pursuing because his real goal was still the time machine. They ended up in an abandoned swimming pool. Out of ammo, Pasha climbed the diving platform holding the device. He threatened to destroy it. The agent lunged. They both fell, but they landed in water. Pasha had activated the device mid-air. They were back in the past. A janitor walked in. They pretended to be normal. The mission was complete. Now that the agent had succeeded, his rage faded. He even invited Pasha to join him in stopping the meltdown. Pasha refused. His friends had all died because of this man. But the agent said, "Isn't that your goal too? If you don't help me, they all died for nothing." Pasha hesitated. He put his rage aside. Stopping the meltdown came first. The agent had been preparing for years. After seeing the group vanish and the explosion unfold, he truly believed their story. He memorized all their birth dates during interrogation and later verified every detail. His plan? Wait until they grew up and returned to Chernobyl. The time machine would appear again. He'd done everything to guide them here. He bugged Pasha's house to get the safe code. He sabotaged the internet so the technician could enter, and he paid him to go to Chernobyl, leading them all in. He even sent the photo to Anya so she'd join the journey too. Though he hated them, he had to keep them safe until the machine appeared. That's why he killed the crazed hunter and the escaped patient. He couldn't let anything jeopardize the timeline. Now, Pasha understood. All those coincidences finally made sense. As they talked, the agent didn't realize this house wasn't entirely his. The door flew open. The younger agent walked in with a gun. Pasha raised his hands. The older agent tackled him. They were, after all, the same person. Any injury one took, the other would feel too. So the older agent handcuffed his younger self. Pasha had a chance to kill him, but didn't. The plan was already in motion. They infiltrated the special ops base. The agent tricked the guards into locking themselves up, then led Pasha into the armory. Their plan was simple: fire a few rockets at the plant, make them panic, shut down the reactor. But the young agent had already escaped and organized a team to stop them. They met on the road. The older agent turned the gun on his younger self. A fierce shootout began. Outnumbered, the older agent was pinned down. He begged Pasha to help. Though it was his first time using a rocket launcher, Pasha nailed the shot and brought down the giant chimney. The mission was a success, but in the chaos, the older agent was hit because his younger self had died. He vanished instantly. Pasha was taken into custody, but moments later, disappeared again. He was back in the present. Everything around him had changed. The special ops base was now a history museum, and Chernobyl, no longer a ghost town. It had become a bustling modern city. Pasha stood there, stunned. He had really changed the future. He found a public computer and called Lyosha. Not only was he alive, but now an outstanding student. Gosha, the former genius, was now a street thug and dating Nastya. Pasha couldn't believe what he'd caused. Suddenly, a middle-aged man rushed over. It was Anya's father. He had once been arrested and never got to carry out his own plan. But when the meltdown never came, he realized someone else had succeeded. He spent years studying time travel and warned Pasha, "From the moment you changed the past, you are no longer the same person." Sure enough, in a distant city, another Pasha woke up in bed gasping for air.